Moneycontrol Policy Next, the MSME Summit. It's co-sponsored by SPAN, associate partners IBM and Intel, even partner Strata, and solutions partner Tally. I would also like to inform the wonderful audience to please do remember to tweet the snippets and insights from the summit with the hashtag #MCPolicyNext. MSMEs, as we know, are the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Today, at this summit, we deep dive into the world of MSMEs that form the backbone of the Indian economy. From achieving scale to integrating technology to grow, we are looking forward to an insightful next few hours. And who better to begin the summit with? None other than the Honorable Shri Narayan Raneji, the Minister for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. I would like to invite Moneycontrol Deputy Executive Editor Ravi Krishnan to deliver the welcome address.
Thanks, Meghna. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Honorable Minister, it's my honor and privilege to welcome each and every one of you to this summit on MSMEs. We are delighted to have Shri Narayan Rane, the Union Minister for MSMEs, with us today. Thank you, Raneji, for gracing us with your presence at this summit. You have been an ardent champion and supporter of the MSME sector, personally and also as a Union Minister. The industry and other stakeholders who are present here today will be eager to hear your thoughts on the way forward for the sector. MSMEs for long have been called the backbone of India's economy. We are all familiar with that number 63 million. I mean, that's how many MSMEs there are in India. Together, they account for almost a third of the nation's GDP and 40% of our exports. And most importantly, they also provide employment to 110 million Indians. But MSMEs are not economic units alone. They are also at the center of many communities across the nation. They promote local development, play an important role in creating sustainable livelihoods, and encourage social inclusivity. In today's interconnected world, the opportunities are endless, especially as MSMEs strive to become a part of global supply chains. At the same time, however, MSMEs face a number of hurdles in terms of accessing those global networks, in accessing credit, information, and technology. Many also lack the awareness that regulations or the knowledge to deal with them. Today at this summit, we have gathered a diverse group of experts, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders to discuss and debate some of these issues. These interactions will no doubt shine a light on the way forward and offer solutions that will help this critical sector unlock its potential growth. Once again, a warm welcome to each and every one of you for taking time out on a weekday evening. I now invite Shri Rane for a fireside chat. Sir. मंत्री जी, आपका बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने अपना कीमती समय निकालकर हमारे साथ आज शामिल हुए इधर। एमएसएमई सेक्टर को इंडिया के ग्रोथ में बहुत बड़ा भूमिका निभाया है। दुनिया का मानना है कि इंडियन कंपनियां चाइना का जगह लेंगे ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन्स में। ये सेक्टर 3 साल के अनिश्चितता के बाद, कोरोना पैंडेमिक महामारी के बाद बाहर निकला है। अब हम इस सवाल से शुरुआत करना चाहेंगे, अगर बुरा वक्त बीत चुका है तो एमएसएमई सेक्टर को किस बात की चिंता है और गवर्नमेंट क्या कर रही है उस चिंता को दूर करने में?
मनी कंट्रोल पॉलिसी नेक्स्ट एमएसएमई समिट आपने आयोजित किया है। इसमें श्री रवि कृष्णन जी और सभी अन्य मान्यवर हैं। आपने जो सवाल किया है, एमएसएमई ये भारत की महत्वपूर्ण एक विभाग है। माननीय मोदी, पंतप्रधान नरेंद्र मोदी इनके सरकार में एमएसएमई इसका फुल फॉर्म है माइक्रो स्मॉल एंड मीडियम इंडस्ट्री, ये फुल फॉर्म है। इसमें करीब 6 करोड़ 40 लाख इंडस्ट्री है, उद्यमी है। इसमें देश के अर्थव्यवस्था में एमएसएमई का हिस्सा 30% है। आप समझ सकते हैं कि देश के अर्थव्यवस्था में 30% जिम्मेदारी एमएसएमई उठाती है। एक्सपोर्ट में 49% एक्सपोर्ट एमएसएमई के माध्यम से किया जाता है। तो एमएसएमई की भूमिका देश में रोजगार निर्माण करना, उद्योग निर्माण करना, देश का जीडीपी बढ़ाना और आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनाना। इसके आगे जाके मैं कहूंगा कि माननीय मोदी साहब ने अभी अभी 9 साल पूरे किए। 14 में जब वो पंतप्रधान बने कि दुनिया के अर्थव्यवस्था में इंडिया 10वें नंबर पे थी। अभी 9 वर्ष होने के बाद, 9 साल होने के बाद मोदी जी को आज दुनिया के अर्थव्यवस्था में भारत 5वें क्रमांक पे है, 5वें क्रमांक पे। अब मोदी जी चाहते हैं 2030 में भारत 3रे क्रमांक में आना चाहिए। अमेरिका, चाइना, भारत एक क्रम होना चाहिए। उसके कोशिश में एमएसएमई ने अपना अगला प्लान बनाने शुरू किया है। एमएसएमई हर साल अपना जो जीडीपी का जो प्रमाण 30 है, 35 या 5 साल में 50 तक पहुंचने का प्लान हम कर चुके हैं। आगे
ये कैसे होगा सर? इसमें स्टेप्स क्या लेंगे आप ये टारगेट तक पहुंचने
स्टेप
में?
बोलेगा तो इसके लिए आवश्यक जो मदद है, हेल्प है, वो केंद्र सरकार कर रहे हैं। हमारे अलग अलग विभाग है, खादी ग्रामोद्योग, केवाईसी है, एनएसआईसी है, ऐसे अलग अलग विभाग में पीएमजीपी है। तो हर विभाग में हम अलग अलग इंडस्ट्री को प्रोत्साहित करने के लिए मदद भी करते हैं, सब्सिडी भी देते हैं और लोन भी देते हैं। हमारे युवा पीढ़ी को हमारे लेटेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजी दुनिया में जो आई है उसका ज्ञान या प्रशिक्षित करने के लिए टीसी हम हर स्टेट में 2-3 टीसी टेक्निकल सेंटर देते हैं। उसमें हमारे युवा पीढ़ी को प्रशिक्षण देते हैं। प्रशिक्षण के बाद वो उद्योग लगाना चाहता है तो उसको लोन देते हैं, मशीनरी देते हैं और अपना बिजनेस वाइबल होने के लिए सब तरह का मार्गदर्शन करते, एक्सपोर्ट के लिए भी मदद करते हैं।
सर, बट ये सब जो सपोर्ट है वो रजिस्टर्ड कंपनियों को सिर्फ मिलता है, और अगर हम उद्यम के डेटा देखें तो आपने जो बोला 6 करोड़ 40 लाख कंपनियों में से सिर्फ 2 करोड़ का रजिस्ट्रेशन हुआ है अब। जो इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर में अभी भी जो है उन कंपनियों को हम कैसे फॉर्मलाइज करेंगे, उनको और उनको मदद कैसे देंगे? क्योंकि अभी जो अभी जो सपोर्ट जा रहा है तो वो तो सिर्फ थोड़े कंपनियों के लिए जा रहा है ना?
नहीं, हम हर स्टेट में हमारा ऑफिस है एमएसएमई का। वहां का ऑफिस वहां के लोगों के लिए, वहां के यूथ के लिए जो उद्योग लगाना चाहते हैं उसके लिए मार्गदर्शन हम करते हैं कि एमएसएमई ऑफिस है, इसमें माइक्रो, स्मॉल, मीडियम के लिए आवश्यक वो मदद हम देते हैं। ये जानकारी हम लोगों तक देती है इवेंट के माध्यम से। अलग अलग इवेंट हम करते हैं, जो करते हैं उनको इवेंट के लिए मदद करते हैं। हम लोगों को इवेंट के माध्यम से उनको प्रबोधन करते हैं, मार्गदर्शन करते हैं, और जो हमारे पास आते हैं उनको हम रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप रजिस्ट्रेशन करो, आपको इस तरह से मदद। 1 साल में रजिस्ट्रेशन 1 करोड़ हुआ है, 1 करोड़। ये अभी स्पीड पकड़ा है तो मैं समझता है ये जो अभी 6 करोड़ 40 लाख है, आने वाले साल में रजिस्टर पूरे लोग कर देंगे और संख्या भी बढ़ जाएगी। 6 करोड़ से 7, 8, आगे जाएंगी।
सर ये 6 करोड़ 40 लाख का नंबर भी जो है वो 2015-16 के एक सर्वे से निकाला था।
नहीं, अभी तो लास्ट महीने में हम 6 करोड़ 30 लाख बोलते थे, अभी 40 बोलने लगा। 10 लाख तो ये 5-6 महीने में बढ़े।
अच्छा,
ये तो बढ़ते जा रहे। और देखो हम महत्व इसलिए दे रहे हैं कि इंडस्ट्री से ही देश का ग्रोथ रेट बढ़ता है, तो जीडीपी बढ़ाने के लिए कोशिश, उत्पादन ज्यादा से ज्यादा होना चाहिए देश में, एक्सपोर्ट होना चाहिए, इंपोर्ट कम होना चाहिए, ये कोशिश में हम लगे हुए हैं।
राइट सर। सर एमएसएमई सेक्टर का कहना है कि ये उनको जो एक्सेस टू क्रेडिट है यानी फाइनेंसिंग, ये एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है। तो पैंडेमिक के दौरान तो बहुत सारे स्कीम भी आए थे, ECLGS स्कीम एक बड़ा एग्जाम्पल है। एसबीआई का एक रिपोर्ट ने भी बोला कि ECLGS के कारण 1,70,000 नौकरियां बची एमएसएमई सेक्टर में। पर उसके आगे भी अभी क्योंकि वो तो खत्म हो गया मार्च 31 को, तो और एमएसएमई सेक्टर को और सहायता की जरूरत है क्रेडिट एक्सेस में, आपका क्या ख्याल है?
देखिए, अभी हमारे एमएसएमई 11 क्या आगे 12 करोड़ तक रोजगार हम दे चुके हैं। अभी आपने कहा जो हमें फाइनेंस के लिए हमें कोई दिक्कत है ही नहीं। हम जो उद्यमी बनना चाहते हैं, हमारे पास एप्लीकेशन आ जाएगा या लोन के लिए अप्लाई करेंगे तो वो हम तुरंत देने की हम कोशिश करेंगे। हम जब एमएसएमई ये विभाग चालू है तो उसमें हम इंडस्ट्री लगाते जाना, रोजगार तैयार करना, देश का उत्पादन बढ़ाना, ये हमारा फर्ज ही है। और मोदी जी के कार्यकाल में ये तो बढ़ते ही गया है।
राइट, बट एक्सेस टू क्रेडिट में कुछ और हम नया स्कीम की एक्सपेक्टेशन रख सकते हैं क्रेडिट एक्सेस में, क्योंकि अभी भी सिर्फ 20% क्रेडिट उनको फॉर्मल चैनल से मिल रहा है, जैसे बैंक्स और एनबीएफसी। ये कर्ज के मामले में
नहीं, हम किसको दिक्कत आएगी तो हमारे पास आने दे, हम उनको करके देंगे। कोई दिक्कत आने का कोई शॉर्टेज नहीं है। कई प्रपोजल रिजेक्ट होते हैं, उसका रीजन अलग होता है।
जैसे कि सर मतलब
रीजन वो कुछ जो फॉर्म भरना है या उसके लिए जो भी डॉक्यूमेंट सबमिट करना है वो प्रॉपर नहीं होने से रिजेक्ट होता है। पैसे नहीं है करके कोई रिजेक्ट नहीं, कोई बैंक या कोई हमारा डिपार्टमेंट कर रहा है।
सर बट ये अगर कॉम्प्लायंस का कॉस्ट बहुत ज़्यादा है, वो बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स है, बहुत सारे डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है, वो सब सिंप्लीफाई करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट क्या कर रही है? क्योंकि
आपका
वो भी
सजेशन है, हम वेरीफाई करके कोशिश करेंगे, पर हमें लगता नहीं ऐसी दिक्कत पैदा कोई हमारे जो इंडस्ट्री लगाना चाहते हैं उसको होगी तो हम सॉल्व करने के लिए, हल करने के लिए बैठे हैं।
ओके। सर बहुत सारे एमएसएमईओं का ये भी दावा है कि ये बड़े कंपनी का ग्रोथ जो हो रहा है वो उनके कीमत पे हो रही है, मतलब दे आर टेकिंग एडवांटेज ये एमएसएमईओं का। तो आपका क्या मानना है, ये ऐसा हो रहा है क्या? सरकार क्या कर
बड़ी
सकती है?
कंपनी बन गई है, हम उनका अभिनंदन करते हैं, हमारे लिए गवर्नमेंट की बात है। बड़ी देश के एक्चुअली भी वो एसेट इंडिया का ही है ना। बड़ी कंपनी बड़ी हो गए, वो अंबानी हो, कोई भी जितने भी है बड़े, तो हम ऐसे नहीं बोलते कि हमारे वजह से हुए। उनको लगता होगा गवर्नमेंट के सिवा, मगर कुछ भी किसी क्षेत्र में जाइए, गवर्नमेंट के परमिशन के सिवा तो कुछ नहीं लगता है। परमिशन तो चाहिए। वो जमीन के लिए, फैक्ट्री डालने के लिए, फैक्ट्री एक्ट के मुताबिक सब परमिशन लगता है। गवर्नमेंट का तो मदद लगता है, उस डॉक्यूमेंट के सिवा तुमको लोन भी नहीं मिलता है ना। तो जिन्होंने बनाया बड़ी कंपनी, बड़ा नाम कमाया, हम उनका अभिनंदन करते हैं। हम बोलते नहीं कि हमारे वजह से, उनके वजह से ही हुआ।
राइट। तो सर अगर इंडिया के इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ की तरफ देखें तो आपके हिसाब से क्या इकोनॉमी जीडीपी ग्रोथ में और तेजी हो सकती है? वो पिकअप करेगी जीडीपी ग्रोथ? आपने जनवरी में बोला
नहीं,
था
मैं
शायद
अभी
रिसेशन
कहा,
होगा।
देखिए 2014 में दुनिया के अर्थव्यवस्था में 10वें क्रमांक में था। अभी हम 9 साल के बाद 5वें क्रमांक में आए। हम चाहते हैं 3rd क्रमांक में जाना है। हमारा आगे जर्मनी और जापान है। $1 ट्रिलियन की बात है। हमारा उत्पादन या जीडीपी बढ़ जाए 1 ट्रिलियन, हम ज्यादा जीडीपी बढ़ाएंगे तो हम जापान जर्मनी के दोनों के आगे जाते हैं, हम 3rd नंबर पे जाते हैं। मैं इस कोशिश में हम लगे हैं। हम शुरुआत में ही कहा कि हम अभी कोशिश में लगे हैं कि 2030 में भारत दुनिया के अर्थव्यवस्था में 3रे क्रमांक में आना चाहिए। इस कोशिश में लगे हुए हैं।
सर एक और टारगेट है 2030 तक एक्सपोर्ट्स का 2 ट्रिलियन।
आपकी जो कंपनी है उनका नाम क्या है?
मनी कंट्रोल।
मनी कंट्रोल।
हाँ,
तो वो हमेशा यही कंट्रोल करते हैं, दूसरे को कंट्रोल करके फुट की ग्रोथ चाहते हैं ना। तो हम भी हमारी ग्रोथ चाहते हैं ना। जिधर मनी का मामला है वो ग्रोथ के तरफ ही भागता है।
मैं ये पूछ रहा था आपसे कि दूसरा जो टारगेट है 2030 का जो आपने जिक्र किया, वो है एक्सपोर्ट टारगेट ऑफ 2 ट्रिलियन। सो उसमें एमएसएमईज का क्या टारगेट रखा है आपने और वो कैसे अचीव करेंगे उसको?
नहीं, देखिए हमारा एमएसएमई का रोल जो है, देश के एक्सपोर्ट जो होता है उसमें 49% है और इंपोर्ट हमारे देश में ज्यादा होता है एक्सपोर्ट के प्रमाण में। हम चाहते हैं हमारे देश के पैसे या रुकने चाहिए, बचने चाहिए, इसलिए और इंपोर्ट कम होने के लिए हम जिस माल का हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं वो यहाँ के उद्यमी को हम रिक्वेस्ट करनेंगे कि आप हम जो इंपोर्ट करते हैं वो प्रोडक्शन आप लीजिए और जिस क्षेत्र में उधर रिक्वायरमेंट है उधर आप सप्लाई करिए। जिस देश को वो चीज चाहिए, जैसे चाइना में कई फैक्ट्रियां बंद हो गई तो उनका माल कोरिया, साउथ कोरिया, इंडोनेशिया उन्होंने बनाया, वो एक्सपोर्ट उन्होंने लिया। उसी तरह इंडिया कम से कम इंपोर्ट रोक भी जाए कुछ परसेंटेज, 20, 30, 40, काफी हमारी ग्रोथ आगे बढ़ सकती है और एक्सपोर्ट भी बढ़ सकता है। और इसके लिए हमने एमएसएमई के थ्रू हमारे उद्यमी को प्रोत्साहित कर रहे हैं कि ये चीज आप जो इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं वो प्रोडक्शन आप निकालें।
ओके, तो उसका मतलब है कि क्लस्टर डेवलपमेंट में एम्फेसिस होगा?
या क्लस्टर में हम कई क्लस्टर अप्रूव कर रहे हैं।
कौन कौन से सर, कुछ और डिटेल्स आप जरा दे सकते हैं?
नहीं, इतना डिटेल कौन कौन से, वो 150 के करीब ये लिस्ट है। 120 के करीब सैंक्शन हो गए हैं और अभी उनको ऑर्डर मिल जाएंगे।
ओके ओके ओके। सो कई एमएसएमईओं का ये भी कहना है कि एक और क्षेत्र में जिसमें उनको गवर्नमेंट की सपोर्ट चाहिए, वो है डेटा, इकोनॉमी का डेटा, कंजम्पशन पैटर्न्स का डेटा, मार्केट्स के बारे में डेटा, इंटरनेशनल मार्केट्स के बारे में डेटा। इसमें इस एरिया में सरकार कुछ कर रही है?
नहीं, वो हम अभी करिए, हमारी सालगिरह हमारे एमएसएमई के हो गए, उनमें हम तय किया है कि आगे लेटेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजी जो दुनिया की जो है वो हमारे यूथ तक पहुंचाने का काम, ये जो आप डेटा का बात किया, जानकारी देने का, वो भी उपलब्ध करने के लिए एक नया विभाग खोलने की हमारी कोशिश है। तो ये सभी जो आज आवश्यक है इंडस्ट्री के लिए, ग्रोथ के लिए, वो हम आने वाले साल में पूरा करेंगे।
ओके ओके ओके। और सर डिलेड पेमेंट्स के बारे में तो एक एमएसएमई समाधान
एक्ट में भी हम प्रोविजन किया, 43 प्लस जो इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में हम लाए वो डिले पेमेंट रोकने के लिए किया है
सर। बट जो समाधान स्कीम जो है
वो भी उसके लिए है ना?
उसके लिए है सर। बट एक जो सजेशन है लोगों का कि उसको थोड़ा और फास्ट करना चाहिए, बहुत टाइम ले रहा है।
उसके थ्रू आपने सजेशन किया, हम एक्सेप्ट करते हैं, फास्ट शुरू करेंगे, फास्ट शुरू करेंगे।
ओके ओके ओके।
अभी इधर मैं फास्ट हूँ, आप स्लो है।
आपके ख्याल में मेक इन इंडिया ब्रांड को और पॉपुलर करने के लिए और क्या किया जा सकता है?
हमारे पंतप्रधान मेक इन इंडिया में काफी ध्यान दे रहे, तो हम मेक इन इंडिया के लिए आवश्यक जो भी करना है वो करेंगे, और मेक इन इंडिया में हमारे यूथ को जो भी मदद चाहिए वो हम देने के लिए तैयार हैं।
बट ब्रांड को कैसे प्रमोट करेंगे सर, मेक सो दैट मतलब वो बाहर दूसरे देशों में और पॉपुलर हो, ताकि एक्सपोर्ट्स एमएसएमईओ का बढ़ सके, जैसे ई कॉमर्स चैनल से वगैरह?
देखिए, अभी हमारे देश के पंतप्रधान अमेरिका गए थे और उन्होंने काफी एग्रीमेंट किया। वो सब्जेक्ट जरा आप देखिए, यही कि हम अलग अलग क्षेत्र में, आईटी में या टेक्नोलॉजी में हम हमारा तरक्की करें, डेवलपमेंट करें। इसलिए अमेरिका का कई क्षेत्र इनका कंपनी भी इधर स्टार्ट करने के लिए वो एग्रीमेंट में साइन हो गए। तो हम ये सब चाहते हैं और इसके लिए हम वक्त देते हैं, हम शुरू भी किया है उस तरह का।
ओके ओके सर, आप हमेशा महाराष्ट्र में और इन्वेस्टमेंट्स लाने की कोशिश किए हैं। हाल ही में महाराष्ट्र के हाथ से फॉक्सकॉन वेदांता प्रोजेक्ट निकल गया है गुजरात को।
निकल नहीं गए आपके, ये कोई पॉलिटिशियन बैठा कि जो आपको ब्रीफ किया ये सब? नहीं, मैं समझ नहीं रहा हूं। एक गया ऐसे जाते कि मैं महाराष्ट्र में 4 साल इंडस्ट्री मिनिस्टर था, बाद में मुख्यमंत्री बना। जब जो बाहर से इंडस्ट्री आती है वो 2-3 चीज पूछते हैं। लैंड फ्री देते हैं, कंसेशन में देते हैं, टैक्स में सहूलत देते हैं, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हमें चाहिए। 3 जो स्टेट ज्यादा तो एकदम फ्री ऑफ चार्ज में जमीन देंगे उधर वो पहला फर्स्ट प्रेफरेंस देते हैं। टैक्स में सहूलत टोटल में 30-40% उन लोग मांगते हैं, 40% सहूलत। जो डेवलप स्टेट है वो कोई नहीं देगा, जिधर आवश्यक नहीं है कुछ अभी तक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वो देंगे। मगर महाराष्ट्र में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर अच्छा है, बजट भी बड़ा है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर अच्छा है, इंडस्ट्री कंपटीशन भी है। तो महाराष्ट्र में उनको जमीन का रेट जो है, जिधर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होता है उधर जमीन का भाव अच्छा होता है, तो उनको अच्छा जमीन का भाव परवड़ा नहीं, इसलिए गया होगा। ऐसा नहीं है कि महाराष्ट्र से गया, थ्रू महाराष्ट्र में आकर गया होगा या मुंबई उतर के ट्रेन से गया होगा, बात अलग है। तो सब जन पॉलिटिकल लीडर बोलते हैं महाराष्ट्र में आए फिर गुजरात में गए। बाहर फॉरेन से लोग पहले मुंबई देखते हैं फिर इंडिया देखते हैं, ऐसा है।
सर, अब तो रत्नागिरी पेट्रोकेमिकल्स और रिफाइनरीज का तो विवाद चल रहा है, आपका
नहीं, विवाद कुछ नहीं चाहिए। किसका अभी सत्ता में से घर में बैठे तो कुछ कामकाज नहीं है करके अपोज कर रहे हैं, बाकी कुछ नहीं। हम उधर लाएंगे, प्रोजेक्ट लाएंगे, रिफाइनरी लाएंगे।
सो आप बहुत उम्मीद रखते हैं कि
उम्मीद रखते ना, हम सरकार में है तो उम्मीद नहीं, हम लाएंगे।
ये ऐसे पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज क्यों करते हैं कि ऑपोजिशन में जब जाते हैं विरोध करते हैं इन्वेस्टमेंट्स के?
नहीं तो उनके काम नहीं है। मीडिया में नाम कैसा आएगा, फोटो कैसा आएगा? वो जो लोग गए थे वहां, वो लेके गए थे कि देखो विरोध कर रहे, वो रत्नागिरी के नहीं थे, रोड में काम कर लामानी लोग को लॉरी में भर के लेके गए उधर। उनको 2-2 हजार पर डे का दिया उन्होंने। वो क्या वहां के लोग ने, कोकन के लोग इंडस्ट्री चाहते हैं। हमें डेवलपमेंट चाहिए, उधर बेकारी भी है। उधर का पर कैपिटा इनकम 2 लाख रुपए तक है, तो हम बढ़ाना है 3 लाख 4 लाख तक। तो ये इनका जो धंधा शुरू किया है बेकारी में, वो पॉलिटिकल ही है।
ओके। जब पॉलिटिक्स की बात कर रहे हैं तो एक और सवाल किया जाए। 2024 जनरल इलेक्शन में आपका क्या प्रोजेक्शंस है? कितना सीट सरकार क्या वापस आएगी, आपका क्या ख्याल है?
देखिए, मैं कोई पार्टी का अध्यक्ष नहीं हूं और पार्टी का इस जो आप फिगर है ना, उसमें मैं कमेंट्स करना नहीं चाहता हूं। अभी वक्त है, मगर फिर एक बार देश में माननीय मोदी साहब की, नरेंद्र मोदी साहब जो आज पंतप्रधान रहेंगे, उनकी सरकार आएंगी और कम से कम इस वक्त 400 के करीब सांसद चुन के आएंगे।
एक आखिरी सवाल।
तालियां एक साइड बैठी है, लेफ्ट साइड नहीं बजती है। थैंक यू, थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
सर,
2 मिनट।
कौन सा राजनीतिक आप 2 मिनट है, ओके। लास्ट क्वेश्चन सर, आप बहुत बड़े बड़े लीडरों के साथ काम कर चुके हैं, जैसे बाला साहब ठाकरे जी और मोदी जी। आप अपने खुद को किस तरह परिभाषित करना चाहेंगे एज ए लीडर? हाउ विल यू डिस्क्राइब योरसेल्फ
झगड़ा
एज ए
लगाना
लीडर?
चाहते हैं?
नहीं नहीं
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं करना। देखिए, मैं उम्र के 15 साल में शिवसेना में ज्वाइन किया और मेरे जिंदगी में बाला साहब जी ठाकरे मेरे गुरु तभी भी थे, आज भी मानता हूं। मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी में आया हूं, आज मैं कैबिनेट मंत्री हूं मोदी साहब जी के मंत्रिमंडल में, मगर हमारे पंतप्रधान नरेंद्र मोदी साहब जिस तरह का काम कर रहे हैं, देश का नाम कर रहे हैं, देश को दुनिया के क्षेत्र में आप तीसरे क्रमांक में लाने की घोषणा कर रहे हैं, तो मैं बाला साहब ठाकरे, मोदी दोनों को भी मानता हूं, रिस्पेक्ट करता हूं, दोनों मेरे गुरु हैं। बस।
ऑल राइट, थैंक यू सर, बहुत धन्यवाद रानी जी। थैंक्स
Much, Mr. Rane and Ravi, for that scintillating discussion. Would request Ravi to please give a token of appreciation to the Honorable Minister. Sir, please stay on the stage for a token of appreciation, please. Thank you very much, sir. And as the Minister said, in 5 years of time, MSMEs will comprise 50% of India's economy, as credit financing is not an issue at all. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for what all of you look forward to very much in a summit, and that is the time for networking. We will break for networking and reassemble in the hall in approximately an hour's time. Thank you very much. We reassemble at 5:50 p.m., please.
Moneycontrol, Policy Next, the MSME Summit.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all had a great time networking. And please do not forget to tweet with the hashtag #MCPolicyNext. We move on to our first panel discussion, Scaling Up, Powering MSMEs to Achieve Scale. For India to be a $5 trillion economy by 2025, ensuring the growth of the MSME sector is paramount, because they galvanize India's economy with income generation and job creation. MSMEs are a key source of exports and are among the largest employers in the world's most populous country. MSMEs contribute not only to manufacturing and exports, but other sectors also benefit by creating a linkage between them and big companies. These MSMEs face severe disruptions, and the pandemic became a call to accelerate reforms and growth for them. The government launched a raft of central sector schemes for MSMEs and handheld the sector during the pandemic when it took a hit. We believe that we have an immense opportunity in enabling our MSME sector to grow a lot more and to create a larger pipeline of healthy enterprises that create many, many jobs. That's what we are trying to explore in our first session, for which I would like to invite Ravi on stage to moderate.
Hi. Welcome to the first session on powering MSMEs to achieve scale. We need MSMEs to boost employment if we want to take advantage of the demographic dividend, and time is running out fast, boost growth and exports too. Also, we would like MSMEs to be part of the global value chain. There are a lot of government support schemes for the sector, but we all know that there are quite a lot of hurdles as well. How can these be overcome? To discuss and debate that, I would like to invite our panel for today, Mr. Anil Bharadwaj, Secretary General of FISME. Hi, Mr. Bharadwaj. Mr. Jyoti Prakash Kadia, Managing Director of Resurgent India. Hi, Mr. Kadia. Mr. Pushan Sharma, Director at CRISIL. Hi, Mr. Sharma. Welcome. Mr. Amit Sharma, Mr. Amit Kumar, sorry, Founder and CEO at MSMEs. Hi, Mr. Kumar. And finally, Mr. Ambikanand Jha, General Manager and Zonal Head at UCO Bank. Welcome, Mr. Jha. So, I think I'll address my first question to Mr. Bharadwaj here. See, on the eve of MSME Day, a survey which was conducted by a fintech, it showed that access to credit still remains the top demand of MSMEs. We have around 200 schemes, which looks at government schemes which look at financing MSMEs, which have outlays of several lakh crores. But access to credit is still a problem. What can be done to solve that?
Thank you, first of all, for giving me this opportunity. I think before we really get to the prescriptions, let's spend a minute in understanding that what is the size of the problem. The RBI report 2019 said that the credit, total requirement of the credit in India was to the tune of 37 lakh crore. Out of that, all banking and financial institutions, including NBFCs, could provide approximately 15-16 lakh crore. So there was a gap in 2019 between 15 to 20 lakh crore. Now 3-4 years have passed. The recent RBI data says that the total financial institutions, again, the formal sector have been able to provide loans up till 21 lakh crore. So that leaves us to the credit gap. If we look at the growth also and the requirement, it would be in the tune of 20 to 25 lakh crore. 20 to 25 lakh crore is still a huge sum of credit gap that exists in the MSME sector. The obvious question then would be why? First of all, the difficulty is that, I mean, you could make a matrix, formality, like, 90% of the MSMEs are in the informal sector. Then size, micro, small, medium, all three segments have different requirement. And then also that the kind of market they serve, like, for example, if they are serving a market which is quite local in nature, their requirement of financial products is very simple, vanilla products would do. But if they are part of a larger supply chain, especially international supply chain, their financial products need would be very advanced. And the standard prescription would be that, there should be literacy, there would be credit guarantee schemes, there would be alternative financial institutions like MFIs, P2P, and VC funds, etc. I would like to say from my experience that there are two unsettled areas which are largely responsible for this credit gap. And if you allow me, I'll spend 2 minutes. One is that regulatory bottlenecks, and second is institutional gaps. In regulatory bottlenecks, I was just speaking to somebody before, coming to you and talking to you, that almost 80 to 90% of micro and small enterprises or businesses in India, they operate from unauthorized space, that is unapproved space. So because the way cities are planned in India, they are not 20 years ahead, but basically cities have come up, they are growing up, and ultimately people have starting business from their home, near their, wherever, on the streets, bazaars that are coming up, but they are not approved as such. And because of that, they find it very difficult to access finance because they are not authorized. So they can't access finance from the financial institution. They cannot register themselves and take advantage of the schemes that you have mentioned, 200 scheme. So no matter whether 200 scheme or 2000 schemes, if you are not registered, then you are not allowed, etc. This is one major problem. The second is that, whether laws related to pollution control, fire department, or getting the maps approved from the MCDs or the urban bodies, it becomes impossible because of this. You are living in unauthorized space, delayed payment related provisions, and government disputes. All put together, they somehow strangle an MSME to such an extent, they find it very difficult. And they all require reforms that are related to regulations. Coming to institutional gaps, for example, you must have heard about IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Now, if you're a large company or if you're a company like registered as a private company, and if the company fails, it can go to IBC. And a promoter can have an honorable exit that provides you for that. But if you are an MSME, 97% of them are proprietorship partnership firms. There is no IBC code available for them. For them, failure means jail. So I can cite such examples. And I think ultimately what I'm trying to say is that you have to address these two set of questions. You have to fill the gap that are there in the institutional space, and then also address and reform in the regulatory space.
Thank you, Mr. Bharadwaj. Let us get the banker's view on this credit gap. Mr. Jha, is regulatory bottleneck the reason, or your credit underwriting models don't allow you to, lend to most MSMEs?
So the major challenges my colleague has already cited. See, when we bankers, we feel that we are always looking for some good proposals, and we are missing out on those. And whenever we are going for such conferences, meetings, I find there are MSMEs who are not getting funds. So there is a challenge to fill this gap. Because see, for bankers, MSME is no more one of the areas where we are looking to lend. This is one of the core areas where we want to lend now. And say for our bank, we were the third fastest growth we posted last year. So that speaks that this is a big space. This speaks for all the banks. What I feel, and there are a lot of schemes also, now up to 10 crore, now startup also funding is based on guarantee coverage. So it looks like that the space of entry level where bookkeeping or the understanding of how a MSME, I'm talking first small scale, how they will be making a bankable proposals. So if that is very well done, very nicely done, and those banks who are willing to go a helping hand and make sure that they also help them in getting this a bankable proposal. A proposal anyway is bankable, he helps and make it a bankable, then it is a very good proposition. But there is a gap where, suppose last week on a Sunday we had a VC meeting with one of the startups for a 15 crore funding. And the first thing he congratulated me for doing a VC on a Sunday. And it was a surprise for him. So it may happen that the process may not be same across India.
So is it a knowledge gap you are talking about?
See, I will not say only in MSME. From the banker's perspective also across there is a gap. And that today many startups are much smarter than bankers also. So their bankers are also struggling to match pace with their knowledge level also. So we also try to understand that how they are doing business, what business they are doing. Their business models also sometimes we take some time to understand. The revenue models we take some time to understand. So as long as there is a mutual understanding and willingness to learn, and funding is part of that. So I mean there's no as such reluctance which per se sometimes we feel that bankers are unwilling to lend. At least that is not the case. That's what we feel.
But Mr. Kumar, I'd like to come to you. How can this knowledge gap be addressed? I mean, when an MSME has to go and present a proposal to a banker, how can we ensure that they do it properly so that both sides are on the same page?
Yeah, so as rightly pointed out by both the panel members that there is a clear-cut gap between the eligibility and capability. So the government or policy, they decide the eligibility and everyone gets into a hope that I am eligible, I should get it. But in real sense, the capability is lacking, which means right from being financially literate and preparing the books and preparing proposal to submitting and convincing and pitching rather. Because asking for loan is not the right, that I should get it because I am eligible. It's the institution which is giving the lending, they need to earn it back. So they need to find out the right proposition to give it to someone, and that's where if 10 people are eligible, they will look for 1 or 2 who is capable. Now in this case, what we do at MSMEs, we are making them financially literate, we are helping them, whoever is coming forward, but the challenge is that people are not ready to come forward for these things easily, because it is a mindset issue also that I need to accept that I am not prepared enough, capable enough to prepare a proposal or a pitch to a bank, because it is so engrossed in the MSMEs that if you are eligible, go to bank or walk into a bank and come out with a check. That is the kind of perception which is created. However, it should be that you need to go and pitch to a bank. You need to go and pitch to an investor. You need to convince them. You need to prove it to them that you are a good business and you deserve that. And this requires preparation. And those who are evolved, they have better mindset, they are open in their mind, they come to us, we prepare them. But if you are not ready to accept, the help is difficult in that case.
Right, right. Mr. Gadia, I mean, what do you think? I mean, is it purely a knowledge gap, or do we need better credit underwriting models? Do banks and NBFCs, do they need to look at cash flow lending, for example, which seems to be a lot of people are talking about, that we should look at that.
Thank you. And I think so I'm in a rightly situation or at a rightly poised because of the profession that I am. I act as an intermediary between the MSME who is looking for the loan and the banks which gives the loan. So I bridge that gap, and supportedly, sir, we are one of the biggest consultant in the country. Last year we helped around 50,000 crore of fundraising for approximately around 2,800 corporates in India with the pan-India presence. So this is what we do. In terms of the understanding and whatever the documentation gap, and this is, so We tell people कि sir, we act as an interpreter because banker की एक अलग language है. Banker has got their own language. They might be speaking English, but whatever the words that they might be using and the MSMEs that they might be understanding, there can be huge gap difference that definitely can be arising. I can give you numerous examples of that कि bankers might be saying this. And when there is a communication, when you ask an entrepreneur कि आपने क्या समझा जब बैंकर ने ये बात बोला, तब आपको समझ में आता है कि वो this is absolutely ridiculous, मतलब जो वो समझ के आया और जो वो बात कर रहा है, whatever that he is understanding about this. So just to bridge this gap, then I thought कि सर ये तो बहुत बड़ा gap है, how to bridge this? So we started our own fintech company called scoreme.in. In scoreme.in, we started building up a platform where it is an automated platform where customer comes on board and the sanction letter is generated. Approximately 150 banks and NBFCs are using those platforms. Front ending is their name. It can be State Bank of India, Union Bank of India. Go to any other bank, any big bank, it is powered by Scoreme. So now, on the back end, I tell you on what grounds those applications are getting rejected. Now I've got that first-hand data and information of telling you this. 22%. Last year, approximately every day, I suppose approximately around 18,000 applications are running on Scoreme. I don't know about any other platform or any other thing. I'm just telling you about our platform, कि हमारे platform पे कितना application आ रहा है, and how many of are getting sanctioned ultimately. 47% of the applications are getting rejected. Out of the applications coming on board, customer is asking for a loan, 47% of the application is getting rejected. 22% of the application is getting rejected at the KYC level itself. KYC के अंदर क्या है sir? Bank has told us कि sir you have to find out कि whatever the name that is written in income tax का पैन कार्ड के अंदर में, GST रिटर्न के अंदर में, पासपोर्ट के अंदर में और उसके ROC रिकॉर्ड के अंदर में, all names and addresses has to be same. Now it is impossible in India कि आपका date of birth would be same in all the 4 records. Your addresses will be same or it will not be interpreted in any other way as per whatever that you might have changed the address or whatever. Sometimes I'm not saying it can be father's name or somebody कहीं पे आपने लिखना भूल गए या कुछ और नाम हो गया. 22% of the application get rejected only itself at the KYC level itself. Thereafter, coming down, when you ask them, ki, sir, then you have to fill up the income tax return and other things. In the income tax return, they have not even forgotten कि sir उसके अंदर जो annexure लगना है कुछ annexure नहीं लगाया, there might be something which has done. So it is improper documentation or improper filing of things that 47% of the application, which I am personally is of aware कि that application is getting rejected. This is from my Scoreme experience I am saying. Now coming back to my personal experience of Resurgent India Limited, which I also try, where I do the manual consulting. Resurgent India के अंदर हम लोग manual consulting करते हैं. किसी को loan चाहिए, we prepare the project report, we go to bank like any other consultant. This is what we do. There we face 2 major issues. One is the interpretation issues in terms of the understanding and the documentation issues. जो अनिल जी ने बात बोली in terms of कि most of the properties which are there, which are not mortgageable or the office which is not there, the address proof we cannot give it to you. This is again there. Thirdly, in this last definition change of this MSME, retail sector has been included into it. So in the retail sector, whatever MSME which is catering to B2C segment, जहां पे B2C segment, please try and understand where there is no GST refund. In B2B, if you are talking about B2B, you will get a GST refund. If you are into a business where there is a B2C business, it means if you are taking any input, you are not getting any credit out of it. If there is no credit, there is no fun of you on getting into कि मैं GST compliant क्यों बनूं फालतू का, unnecessary का, there will be hundreds of headaches which will be coming in. So approximately around, if you now talk about all the shopkeepers or all the vendors of all the country, it means that segment is fully wiped off. There is no incentive for them to get themselves regulated or to get themselves into the GST return mechanism. It means 22% of the MSME, which is into the retail sector, which is into the B2C segment, they have got no incentive for them to get into GST compliant regime at all. That is why you will see that out of 6 lakh crore, whatever the numbers that we talk about, only 1 crore MSMEs are only GST registered. It means 5 crore MSME. पहले तो 6 crore का number सही है कि नहीं वो मेरे को गलत लगता है. This also I see. But I tell you whatever the numbers, ministry, all media houses, everybody tells 6 crore MSME. I take that number 6 crore MSME. Thereafter only 1 crore MSMEs are only registered in GST. It means 5 crore MSMEs are not even registered in GST because of this B2C segment phenomenon. So I think so we need to understand that sir, this KYC issue need to be resolved, and please try and understand the pain for you in case if you want to change your name or address in your Udyog Aadhaar card, in your PAN card, in your passport office. I think you might have got to change any time, and you understand that how difficult for you is to get it changed and to get it aligned all the documents. Thereafter, what would happen? One MSME or one micro enterprise, he will try 2-3 times, he will not get into attempt. What he will come and tell कि sir UCO Bank वाले जहाँ साहब loan नहीं देते. But he will not try and understand कि sir the basic document is there कि sir उसके flaw कहाँ पे है. So we need to educate that the right segments. I think so that should be the issue. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so one theme that is coming out from all your answers is that of high compliance costs, complex regulations, etc. So most government schemes are for registered enterprises. So is it that the benefits from registration, they are exceeded by the costs of compliance? Mr. Sharma, would you weigh in on that, please?
Right. Thanks, Ravi. If we look at the compliance, that the MSMEs have to go through, most of the MSMEs from an employment perspective, they run a lean organization, right? So unlike a large organization, they wouldn't have a compliance department. So compliance is an indirect cost to them to comply, as well as an indirect cost in terms of an opportunity cost itself, right? Because those same energy, resources, time can be spent on some other value addition activities like marketing, operations, technology. So it's a double whammy, a direct compliance cost as well as an opportunity cost. And if you look at, the various MSME organizations, they are the jury is out what the number is, 6 crores, 7 crores. But the fact of the matter is that 99% of the organizations in India are MSMEs, right? And you spoke about the demographic dividend early on, right? If India has to capitalize on this demographic dividend, we need to provide employment to people, and the only engine for doing that is the MSME ecosystem, which is where we need to bring down these compliances, and many of them actually involve jail terms if not complied with, right? So how we at CRISIL see it is that you need to reduce this compliance burden, and that's the only way that you can provide employment to a really young India, which will lead to consumption.
But hasn't there been a movement towards decriminalization of some of these laws in terms of just fines and not like jail terms, as you're saying?
Right.
Or has there not been enough movement towards that?
No, there definitely has been. The government has taken cognizance of this. But the ease of doing business that we talk about in India, the score going down from 142 to 63. So, definitely something to cheer about. But the ease of doing business in Bharat, I would say, where a large part of the MSMEs thrive, I would say still much more needs to be done on that front. For them, for the barriers to entry, for new enterprises to come in and scale, right? Because scale is really important. If we compare ourselves with, say, a country like China, they have 33% lesser MSMEs, but their MSMEs contribute 50% of their GDP. And China's GDP is 5 times that of India, right? So the MSMEs there are 10 times the size of the average MSME in India. So if we need to scale, we really need to work on the compliance front.
Right. Mr. Bhardwaj, would you like to weigh on compliance? What do you advise your members? I mean, these things like this KYC, compliance, I mean, this is like, low-hanging fruits, isn't it?
See, again, MSME sector being hugely heterogeneous, what are the problems, for example, related to KYC typically are experienced when you're talking about the micro enterprises. FISME represents the sector, but primarily our membership is small and medium. So they are better organized. Such problems are not there much with them because they know how to get things done, like, they can update their Aadhaar if the address change is there, etc. And they can manage these difficulties. But, the issue remains. And the issue is that the cost of compliance apart from the cost of compliance, certain problems are there where more than the fee, it is, how you manage it. The cost of managing the system is very high because whether it is related to labor laws, whether it is related to pollution-related laws, whether it is related to fire-related compliances, the flaw is in the law that was made sometimes back, decades back, and everything needs to change and updated. Those have not been done. For example, if you want to just survey around any factory area or any shops or bazaars, and you say how many of them are complying with the fire, you would find that barely 1% would be complying the fire laws. And the reason is, if they apply it to the fire department is going to say that I do not have enough resources to deploy and get them examined. So you need to change the law and allow a system of professionals to emerge. For example, the chartered accountants have come to take care of the income tax and accounting systems are. Similarly, in all compliance areas, there is a need to develop a private sector professionals who can ensure that you have complied, and at the same time they can build the capacity of the person also, train them also, that how it could be done. Without that, the cost of compliance will remain high. On ease of doing business ranking, we have come down. That is true. And the rankings are ranking, and that's why because of the criticism, the World Bank has discontinued this system, as you might be knowing. It is no more there now. The cost related to compliance remains very, very high in India. That is a fact. And it is not decreasing in spite of a large number of digitization, except in certain areas. Income tax, it has come down, certainly. But it has not come down in GST. As a matter of fact, it has increased in GST, particularly for the smaller people.
And in which other areas?
All those areas that I have said. For example, pollution control, fire department, getting your map examined and approved by the urban bodies, the cost has increased. I mean, in terms of the monetary outgo in order to manage the system. See, businessmen ultimately are pragmatic people, right? So they are not going to fight to the death in order to get a law changed. Instead, what they want is that, please let me continue to do my business. What do you want? And ultimately, they manage the environment. And that has a cost. That cost has increased. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. So digitization does not seem to have worked as much as we think it has, especially when it comes to dealing with complaints. What do you think? So I agree with your thought there, and when we interact with the hundreds of MSMEs every month, we get to understand that if I address on the compliance part, that people are not worried about the cost. They're ready to pay even more at times, and the way Anilji said, that they manage the situation. But the pain is a larger cost than the monetary cost, because the time which it takes and the kind of number of rounds which you have to go through is painful. I give you a personal example. In the last 1 month, I've gone through 2 fundamental issues. I was supposed to do some kind of agreement with someone, and that has to be in a stamp paper, and I was going to banks for ESBTR, and I was sending my team. Can you imagine in Mumbai getting ESBTR is a big pain? It is actually. There is only one Franken machine in entire Mumbai, and that is down for the last 15 days. And I'm not able to get the shareholder, the SH4 from Franken. This is the situation. And when I'm giving this reason to the people who are waiting for it, they said, Amit, really? Are you sure that in Mumbai, in the financial capital, this is down? For the last 15 days, zero answer. I'm ready to pay. I said, is there any other route? I'm ready to pay double. So the cost is not the challenge. Whenever we interact, people are ready to, kind of respect that cost. They are ready to invest in the governance. People understand that the governance brings discipline, the better transparency, and if they want to scale, they definitely need better governance. But even after spending money, you don't get that. So digitization is helping. But the way we say that in a typical MSME, if we say, okay, if they are using Tally, Zoho, are they digitized? Yes and no. because that is only one aspect of the entire value chain of digitization. The truly digital MSME is where right from the marketing to sales to operation to HR to payroll to the accounting to payments and bank integration and reconciliation, everything should be digitized. Otherwise, it's like that kind of highway which is a 12-lane highway and then you have a bottleneck of one road. It's of no use. Ultimately, the bottleneck is still there. That will not help.
Right. Talking about complaints, another area which we hear a lot about, which is also related to access to financing, is delayed payments. An MSME Samadhan scheme, which as some of you heard, the minister said he will make it faster. But is compliance an issue there also, Mr. Sharma?
So the Samadhan scheme, has the right intent definitely in terms of, if you look at the working capital issue, right, that's a very critical issue for MSME. Most of the credit requirement is on the working capital front. So the intent there is very right that you have a portal where MSMEs can come, log in their complaints and get the resolution. But if you see the quantum, that in the number of crores of rupees that is logged there, it's only a fraction of the real challenge there, right? And if one reflects as to why that is the case, is because the amount of documentation that you need and the time that it takes to actually resolve the issue is much more. Another challenge is that the MSMEs have to deal with the same buyer again and again, right? And if you take them to the Samadhan portal, you're sort of aggravating the situation, which they might not really want to do. The third is that there needs to be more digital and artificial intelligence tools, maybe sort of the contract itself, right? Each MSME might have a different term and terminology. If there is a standardization of the contract itself and those are then brought to the Samadhan portal, 90% of the issues can be tackled through artificial intelligence tools, and only the 10% will need manual intervention, which can lead to faster resolution of these issues. Second, another challenge is that many of these contracts that MSMEs have might not be really formalized. They could be verbal contracts. So how do you resolve those? Right? So those are some of the challenges still prevalent, which is not completely solving the credit challenge of the MSMEs.
So would giving more powers to MSEFC help, you think?
It could help. It could definitely help. What could also help is, if we want to resolve the credit challenge, something that we were discussing earlier is banks may need to relook at how they traditionally fund the ecosystem. Banks are excellent at funding large organizations, right? They have a subsector strategy. So they'll have a different strategy for the automobile industry and a different strategy for the oil and gas industry. But at CRISIL, when we interact with banks, both public and private sector banks and the top banks, they don't have a subsector level strategy for MSMEs. So, do you lend to an edible oil player and a seafood player in the same manner? Possibly yes, when it comes to MSMEs, right? So that needs to evolve, because what that is doing is banks are overpricing good risk and underpricing bad risk, right? And overall, they're having a suboptimal sort of an experience lending to MSMEs. Once the subsector strategy evolves for banks, that's where this problem can be alleviated to a large extent.
Okay, so overpricing good risk, underpricing bad risk. Mr. Jha, how do you respond to that?
Yes. So one more thing which from banker's perspective I would miss out. So that I just want to tell that. See, we were just discussing till entry level borrowings. Well settled 10-year-old MSMEs, we find enhancing the limits very difficult. The turnover was 5 crore, went to 10 crore, it went to 20 crore, the profit remains same. And then it becomes very challenging to justify where the margins are going. So a good MSME should see what is their vision from 5 years to now. Depending upon scale, very small, they should see at least 2 years vision. Maybe depending upon, so if they have a clarity on some tangibility on the vision, say 5 years, 10 years, then at least the core numbers they should know. Because when we talk about numbers, they ask us, sir, wo to CA batayega. Business they are doing, numbers CA will tell. So if they want certain limits, they will revise the CMA data. So that is very essential that an MSME should see that where they see themselves from 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and whether they need banking support for this growth. So they need to build their books accordingly. And that then where the bankers are there, they very willingly, they will reach out to lend you more. So this is very important aspect for even existing MSME borrowers.
But in terms of risk pricing and in dealing with different subsectors, are new credit underwriting models
Yeah, we were
emerging?
discussing before this session also that way, I mean, we also do not do that kind of analysis as of yet. But yes, within this overall sectors only, there are restricted sectors where the pricing will be little higher. But more or less, most of the MSMEs are not impacted by that same. So it's not really a big thing for now.
Is there a need for customized products for MSMEs?
Yeah, definitely. Now it is like for supply chain, say many are going for channel financing. Channel financing for like many vendors are going for car suppliers, car dealers. So there are channel financing products. Each banks have dedicated products for that, and that is as the understanding of banks are deepening, and they are going into specialized products. Becomes the more the products are structured, it sells better. From the field perspective, we see that if the products are very crystallized, structured, then the field people also don't need required to understand the intricacies of the things, and they when they contract with the customers, the borrowers, it really gels nicely. Yeah.
Okay, but in terms of my question on whether new credit underwriting models are emerging or different methods?
Yeah, see, up to 2 crore basically now we are going digital. So most of the process are going to digital, and very soon up to 5 CR also it will be going like that only. But again, question will come that all the compliances and all the benefits of this will again go to those who are really in compliance. So that remains very essential question. Even cash-based lending also products are, public sector banks are, it's an emerging space where cash-based lending, because as books are not being maintained so nicely, so sometimes cash-based lending always gives the comfort, and that's a space which will definitely emerge. Like pre-approved personal loan in a sector where public sector banks were not doing well. For last 2-3 years, pre-approved personal loan is doing excellent, totally digital lending, and that is doing very nicely. So this is also one space which will grow. The cash-based lending.
Mr. Gadia, he was saying CA से numbers मंगवाते हैं, consultants को भी बोलते हैं क्या? आप numbers बता दीजिए banks को.
Sir, I think so up to 5 crore or 2 crore, there is a particular shift which is emerging. Either you are software lendable or you are not software lendable. Adi, it means, Adi, if you can pass through these 5 screens of software, and then only the lending is possible for a small-scale businessman. Otherwise, why the small-scale businessman is facing difficulty? Because for the larger credit, all these KYC issue, all these non-compliant issues, for the larger credit also coming. But what is happening, their bank is devoting one personal manpower or a relationship manager. There is a proper chain which understand the issues. Then they prepare a proper board note where all the issues are addressed, and then the proper decision making is taken care. But while for a smaller loan, so much of bandwidth that the bankers also doesn't have, and so much of itna hamare paas, we don't have so much of thing which is there. It means there are 2 types of customers which are definitely under stress in terms of MSME. One is undecided customer, another is unapproved customer. It means there can be only customers who can only get a software generated loan. There will be a customer which cannot get a software generated loan. In terms of all the cash flow based lending, in terms of bank BRE, in terms of all the processes, I think so in case if any bank has not adopted it, it's a matter of time, they will still adopt it. But in terms of digital adoption, digital lending, I think so we are far more advanced, and there are some banks which is just here and there. We should be there. So only problem is that whether the MSMEs which cannot pass through these screens, whether we have the manpower, physical manpower possible to understand the issue and then to take care of that credit.
But why don't they pass through these screens?
they cannot pass through because, as I told you, in the software, the first stage is that you have to pass through the KYC document. So second, he has to submit all the documents. The third, he has to submit all the business income statements. So he has to submit screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, screen 4. All these documents has to be submitted one by one, one by one. So you have to pass through every screen. In case if you stop at every screen, the loan application, it doesn't go through also at that point of time. Regarding compliance, which you were saying, I will just share 2-3 personal examples of mine, because since I am a startup and I have done 2 companies. In Resurgent India Limited, when we started in approximately after 3-4 years, we were told by my accountant, sir, we should get a PF registration. I told PF registration, theek hai, you can go and apply for any PF registration. So he hired one consultant who was doing the PF consultant. As soon as we filed the PF application, the bombardment of question came, why you are not PF impaneled for last 3 years? This was the first question. Then give us all the record for last 3 years. Why? I told, sir, we have recently started the company. I was not applicable under PF and other thing. So it took us another next 2 years, not for the PF impanelment, just to convince them, sir, that my PF impanelment was not applicable when I applied at that point of time. Regarding what the Bhardwaj is told, if we apply for a fire or apply for a pollution license, definitely they don't have the bandwidth to come and check it. Problem is another more. There was one client whom we were working for asking, he was asking for a loan, so we were working. So bank told कि इसका fire license नहीं है, fire license लेके आइए. When we applied for a fire license people came and inspected the factory, and they told us so many things that we have to shift to a new factory at all, or we cannot operate in that factory itself. So my loan, which was at a last stage of sanction, only thing the sanction letter only pointed out, ki, sir, you just apply for a fire license. Sir, my entire company and existence came at stake because of that fire license approval. I was operating for last 20 years without that approval. As soon as I applied it, the authority came to know that I exist. Fire authority came to know कि यहाँ पे एक factory है, वो exist करती है, sir. The point that it came to know that I exist here, I just became a scapegoat for them. And they told us so many things to ramp up in the factory itself, that either I have to shut down the factory or I have to renovate the entire factory. So I have to apply a new loan to the bank, not for the loan which I was applying for. I have to apply for a new loan to a bank कि sir हमको नई factory बनानी है, पुरानी factory बंद करनी है. So sir, these are some of the issues. I think so कि compliance के लिए there are 2 more important things, sir. We are also helping companies in doing the private equity transaction. When you do a private equity, so the other investor, they do a due diligence on you. So there are other big 4 and there are other agencies in the due diligence. In last 15 years, sir, all the big companies which has gone into private equity transaction, either through us or through anybody, the taxation or the compliance due diligence, आज तक ऐसी कोई company नहीं मिली है where there is not less than 100 pages of non-compliance has come in. So it means if all the compliant companies, all the good companies which are in the process of raising private equity are going for an IPO, in case if they hire a consultant for getting a due diligence, they will always get that report. So it means 100% of the company, 40% of the promoter's time, and for an MSME I have calculated and seen that approximately 18 to 20 lakhs of the money every year that micro company has to spend in case if they want to get basic compliance. I'm not even talking about ki usko SOPs and Establishment Act, all these basic 4 or 5 things if he need to comply, he has to spend that much amount of money, and 30 to 40% of the promoter's time that he has to spend to get themselves at least for the basic compliance factor. So these are the 2 things, and 90% of our Compliances Act says that there is a criminal offense for everything. So आपको कुछ भी काम कर लीजिए आपको जेल भर देंगे. मतलब this is the only line that they have, that for every single non-compliance there is a item called that you will be behind bars. There is nothing called into that type of any other offense or any other trajectory. We don't understand, sir. Thanks.
True. Okay, we are running out of time. So one final question which I would like to pose to all panelists, starting from Bhushan. 30 seconds each. If there is one reform which you would like to institute, for the betterment of the MSME sector, what would that be?
In terms of reform, if there was one thing, and the challenge because it's credit oriented, I think that needs to be attacked more. I think cluster development has been spoken about. I think the entire ecosystem needs to work on the cluster development bit. If we look at global examples, there is a lot of sharing that happens between MSMEs when it comes to procurement. Banks can also benefit from a cluster-based approach. They'll have more familiarity, benchmarking in doing their lending. So a cluster-based approach for the entire ecosystem is what needs to be focused on.
Mr. Kumar? So, raise the money, raise the fund in good times so that you don't have to run around here and there in bad times, because in MSME sector it always happens reverse. Whenever you are in bad times, you go out and no investor is ready to give you money. So I say reverse the approach. Whenever you have good time, raise the money so that you can survive better in bad times.
Thank you. Mr. Bharat?
Well, competition in India in the factor markets, whether it is access to finance, but particularly raw material. Today the situation is this, that we were talking about delayed payment. Whether you whether you empower facilitation councils, whether you do something in income tax, or whether you create a trades platform, it is not going to solve the problem. The problem is actually different, and it is that whether it's a large company, which is your buyer, or it is government, it gives a damn to pay you in time. You can't do anything for this. Larger companies in India are protected by high customs duties, whether it is auto, 50 to 100%, no competition. Whether it is iron and steel, copper, aluminium, plastic raw materials and polymers, all of them put together, which are largely the leaders of the supply chains and buyers of MSMEs, they are completely protected, they give a damn, they don't have any competition. If you create competition in the factor markets, then they would value their suppliers and pay them in time and train them. Like, for example, it is happening in Korea, whether it is happening in Japan, in Taiwan, even in China.
Shikari?
I think it's time just we start thinking in a different way. My thought process would be that how we can start incentivizing the good MSMEs instead of talking about how the bad MSME can becoming good. How can we just start making the role model for the good MSME? Good MSME doesn't mean that he's paying loan on time. He's paying electricity bill on time. He might be paying telephone bills on time. He might be paying all his labors on time. Can CRISIL prepare a rating model for all these types of parameters, and we can start rating the MSMEs, and we can start advertising those MSME, and we can start giving them some sort of benefit, maybe through GST or maybe through income tax. Thank you.
I would suggest that MSME education fund, something sort, where can be kept in CSR. And various chambers are there. In Delhi also I found that they are doing wonderful work. They are bringing bankers and MSME on various platforms. And that can be encouraged in a very more professional manner. Across India, we may have few organizations, the sub-bodies, where MSMEs can freely go understand what is the latest thing, and very real things they can understand and get to know how they can make their proposals bankable from bank perspective and the compliance side as well. That will facilitate many, I am sure 30-40% bankable proposals are not coming to the banks at least. So those will be easily coming to us, and that will help the chain moving fast.
Right. So we are out of time. Thank you to all the panelists for your insights and comments. Hope you found the session useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. High compliance costs, financial knowledge gap and credit financing definitely remain as major challenges for MSMEs to scale up. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all are tweeting with the hashtag #MCPolicyNext. Do not forget to tweet. Moving on to our next panel, MSMEs and the decade. Once a new technology rolls over you, if you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road. Technology is the future, and MSMEs need to adapt as much as possible. Indian MSMEs are unique in their entrepreneurial spirit. We are witnessing a reinvention where many of them are getting transformed as digital businesses. The key to the long-term growth of the MSME sector is through digitization and finding new ways to connect with customers and expand reach. E-commerce has played a transformational role for sellers and MSMEs in recent years, especially during the pandemic, by providing new avenues for their growth and expansion. But this is often not a seamless process, as they use a combination of semi-automated and manual business processes. Through our next panel, we will try to explore how MSMEs can surmount the dual challenges of digital marketing and e-commerce, and how digital platforms are enabling micro entrepreneurs. For this, I would like to invite Moneycontrol's editor, Chandra Srikanth, to moderate the panel.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to invite the speakers on the stage. Mr. Dhiresh Bansal, the CFO of Meesho, Mr. Dinesh Agarwal, the CEO of IndiaMart, Ms. Nupur Goenka, the Executive Director of Tally Solutions, and Mr. Ravi Sood, the President of Badli Industrial Estate Association. Is Mr. Sood in the room? Thank you all very much. Yeah, please sit, please sit. It's very encouraging to see a full house on a weekday evening. We were really scared because it's, Bakrid tomorrow. We thought people will go away on a really long weekend. But it's very encouraging to see a full house throughout the session, and thank you all very much for making it to the Moneycontrol Policy Next Summit. No discussion these days is complete without technology and its impact on companies. And it's going to be the same with MSMEs as well. We heard the Union Minister Narayan Rane talk about how the aim is that MSMEs will comprise 50% of the economy in 5 years, from 40% now. So Mr. Agarwal, if I can start with you. IndiaMart is almost synonymous with the MSME story in terms of how you've powered micro, small and medium enterprises in India. What are the key focus areas for MSMEs in the coming 2-3 years, as we see more digitization happening? I think I saw an IMAI data point recently which said India's internet users, are going to rise to 900 million by 2025 from 750 to 770 million now.
See, obviously, this mobile phone and internet adoption helps the entire population to become digital. Whether it is communicating with family members, whether it is sharing photos, or whether it is making payments, day-to-day payments. And nowadays, technology is not such a big taboo, because everybody has used technology during the lockdown, either because of the Zoom, because of the mobile phone, and most of the newer generation over the last 10 years is very comfortable with technology. So I think with this 500, 600 million to 900 million jump that we are going to see is going to expand the buyer base dramatically, because currently the MSMEs who are looking for technology for marketing of their products, finding newer markets, finding newer buyers. I think that is going to increase multifold. Also, the newer people who are coming onto the technology platforms, whether it is mobile phone or whether it is IndiaMart or Meesho or Tally, most of these people are highly comfortable in doing digital transactions. You know, every day we are using UPI in our day-to-day things, and more this is going to become easier for MSMEs also. So the first adoption for any technology comes as either at the enterprise level or at the consumer level, and the second adoption happens at the micro and small and medium businesses. So we believe that as these small and medium businesses will start to adopt to digitizing their products, whether ONDC through or whether IndiaMart, and also adopt to a CRM kind of a thing, because most of these people have been managing their relationships either in the Excel or in the register, and nowadays on WhatsApp, is not a very best use of the technology. I think there are simple CRMs available which are available off the shelf free of cost, or integrated with the solutions like IndiaMart or within Meesho itself. Similarly, the payment systems, people are very comfortable now. Over the last 3-4 years with the advent of UPI, they have become very comfortable. One of the things that people feel is, how do I use this technology to get better credit? How do I use this technology to bridge the trust gap that is there? Because when you are talking to a newer buyer or a newer seller, there is always this trust gap.
Since you mentioned credit, you know, how important is the account aggregator framework going to be? Because that will help, you know, MSMEs, or for that matter any enterprise, get you know, cash flow based lending, cash flow based credit. So what kind of a game changer is that going to be for MSMEs?
I'm very hopeful because over the last 3-4 years, it has been ironed out. Now there are many partners, banking partners, financial information users, financial information providers, and recently I think GST has also been recognized as the financial information provider. So I'm very hopeful that account aggregator, and on top of that OCEN should help at least the smaller loan amounts.
Got it. Got it.
I'm very hopeful.
Nupur, you know, Tally through its accounting solutions, software, you know, has literally been a backbone for many enterprises in India. So how are you seeing, you know, the changing needs, changing demands with respect to technology adoption, you know, with respect to how they are seeing digitization in their businesses? What changes in behavior have you witnessed?
That's a great question. So my experience inside Tally and the way I think about the future is actually super optimistic, because when I have interacted with the small and medium sector, it's one of the few countries where I've seen such a willingness and openness to adopt technology, to experiment, and that's what gives me the view that it is one of the very few markets in the world that is not a demand constraint market, it is a supply constraint market. And I think that is a fascinating thing to work with. That's the general behavior that I've seen. And I think it allows us, people like us as software providers, software manufacturers, to actually do so much more, to be able to approach MSMEs with different categories of software, different types of technology, and actually be able to sit with them to get the kind of feedback to be able to create even more delightful products. I think there are very few markets, like I said, where you're able to have that type of openness, and that is one key behavior. It's not really a change, but I think it's one key foundational behavior that drives the change when it comes to adoption of any kind.
So the openness to...
Absolutely.
Got it. Dinesh, you know, Mr. Agarwal spoke about, you know, how the demand for tech is going up, and, you know, how he's hopeful about things like account aggregator and OCEN. If you can tell us about how MSMEs can deal with challenges around digital marketing, how can they leverage e-commerce and digital platforms as micro-entrepreneurs?
Sure. I think, when I look back, for the last 2 years or 3 years since the pandemic started, there was a step change in openness from MSME entrepreneurs to actually adopt online in a big way. I think one of the hypotheses back in the day, 3 years ago or maybe even before that, to what even Nupur mentioned, like the openness that MSMEs have to adopt digital tools is fairly high. So for example, one of the tools that we offer to our sellers on the platform is a digital marketing tool, where they can do, small businesses can do ads on the platform very much akin to what they will be able to, let's say large corporations will be able to do on a Facebook, Google, multiple other places.
But what about the cost of those ads?
Which are lower than, let's say, if they would be doing it on larger platforms. Plus, if a seller is doing an ad, for instance, on a platform where the user intent is to shop, then that converts much better.
The conversion ratio is
into an actual sale. So what we've seen is people are tremendously open to adopting these new things. I think the next generation, the youth that's kind of coming up and taking over some of these businesses are very, very open to adopt new technologies. And I think it sort of behooves us to solve for them and to create those tools which are intuitive, but at the same time offer the complexity of how to deal with selling online.
Got it. Mr. Sood, you represent the industry here. I mean, you heard from two big e-commerce platforms. You heard from a solutions provider, software provider. What has your own experience been as MSMEs? Do you concur with these points? What are the challenges, as we enter the decade?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. As you said, I represent the manufacturing sector and specifically the micro and small sector. See, and as a manufacturer myself, you have to see, when you are, driving a car, what lets you drive a car faster? It is the brake, which allows you the liberty to drive faster. So what I feel is that a lot of MSMEs are, now going on digital platforms, but there are not enough, the level of confidence needs to be increased. For example, I know in my, my member circle that people are having, for digital transactions, they are keeping 2 accounts. They would, transfer from one account to another account and do only that portion which they know that, they are going to use. So they're afraid that their money might be lost. So the environment has to be created. And another thing is, digitalization and all these things are very good. But we must realize that at the end of the day, a micro enterprise entrepreneur is a PN to proprietor in his factory. He has to manage multiple things. And he has to do multitasking. So it is not always possible, to get educated or get a feedback online. So what we always propagate is that there should be an association and, the institution, whatever institution that is, a collaborative effort where they can collaborate and they can physically come and we can hold sessions and educate our people. Because at the moment, what we feel, for example, I'll talk about Amazon. So if you want to go to Amazon platform and if you're having a problem, you can have n number of help online. But what I feel is that the MSME needs is hand-holding. The second aspect I want to highlight here is, of course, it is not exactly a part of this discussion, but it has been covered in the earlier discussion, is that our younger generation is not coming to join MSMEs. I am referring to the brick and mortar MSMEs. Right. And whenever we have discussion among ourselves, I'll tell you my own example. When my children were in formative years, my wife asked me, would you like your son or daughter? I have 2 daughters, by the way. So would you like your daughters to be running your factory? The instant answer was no. So not only we, but they also don't want to come. And in the age of startups, we must not forget, and the online businesses, all that, we must not forget the importance of brick and mortar factories.
A round of applause for that. Yeah.
So you can do everything online, but at the end of the day, what you trade online or deal online has to be manufactured somewhere. So everybody is now, focusing on, digitalization and, online marketing, all, but we should not lose focus on the basic.
Got it. I have a two-part question, so maybe I'll address one to Dinesh and one here. Dinesh, the first part of it, it's about trust. He mentioned how some entrepreneurs use two accounts because they are scared of losing money or, whether there is enough trust in the system. So what steps should the ecosystem take to build trust among small business owners, given, they fear frauds and what can happen online? Is enough effort going into that?
Yeah, no, I think it's an important barrier to entry when people think about, starting to do business online, or even just starting to do business altogether, right? We heard about the cost of compliance that it takes. Equally on the online side, let's say it's still new for a lot of people, so they fear the unknown. I think some of the steps that platform like ours are taking are twofold, right? One, there are clusters of suppliers in various locations which are forming communities of their own, and it could be through an association, or it could be through informal networks that they are also developing, where, for instance, in a place like Jaipur or Surat or Delhi, even smaller places, Panipat, etc., people form these informal communities where they almost teach each other and are able to kind of impart knowledge. I think there is probably a need to formalize some of those structures to make sure that people are not just getting educated through online knowledge management systems, but also kind of able to form an opinion. The second part is partnerships with various industry bodies, government bodies, etc., where, for instance, we have been running this program around educating very offline-focused businesses to on the house of how to start business online. What are the things that you will face if you are online versus you were offline? So a market like Tirupur, for instance, where traditionally everyone has been very offline-focused. How do you break that mental barrier that, look, online is here and it's here to stay, and you have to kind of start trusting? The third is around just making sure that their problems, challenges are being addressed properly, and I think that will go a long way in sort of developing trust on the platforms.
Got it. Mr. Agarwal, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but the second part of what Mrs. Sood said, which is the children of MSME owners do not want to run these factories anymore. They perhaps want to join startups like Meesho or IndiaMart or Tally. How do you make MSMEs more aspirational? How do you make them more attractive?
Yes, there are few cases like that. So there are two kind of set of people. One who hate their own family business, and one who love their family business. That my children is going to take over this, and
I think Nupur belongs. We know which category she belongs.
So there are both sides of it. And over a period, these things will settle down. I don't think, yes, brick and mortar is very important, hand-holding is very important. So at IndiaMart, we just don't do an online support. We provide on-the-field internet consultant who comes and visit you and help you. Because otherwise, you might be able to fulfill the buyer side of demand with 10,000 suppliers. But if you want to enable 10 million suppliers, I think this point is very valid, that MSMEs need hand-holding. Tally has done such a super job with the Tally Education Partners through the Tally Education Partners. So I think that part is very, very valid. In terms of trust, there are various mechanisms like, ratings and reviews are being done, OTP-based verification is being done. One of the things that I've been waiting from go ahead from the government because yes, Aadhaar-based authentication leads to a privacy issue. But I think a PAN-based authentication, if that can be given, that can lead to at least the seller side verification very good. Because PAN or GST, because GST, GST is based upon PAN. So because currently there is no way to bridge the impersonation gap. So you can have a phone number OTP verified, email OTP verified, but the GST number or the PAN number is separate, So just like Jandan Aadhaar mobile, now that the PANs are connected with the Aadhaar and all that, if a PAN-based verification mechanism can be given, PAN to mobile, I think that can solve a lot of trust issues on the marketplaces.
Got it. Nupur, Mr. Agarwal mentioned, in terms of educating and handholding MSMEs, how it's not just online, but also offline. So, what can platforms, what can, product providers, software providers do to surmount some immediate challenges in terms of digital literacy, warehousing, inventory management, cash flow concerns?
So I would actually go back to
once they are onboarded.
Right. So I would actually go back to the first point about access. So if I think about Tally, I think one of our biggest strengths is actually our partner network across India. And this for us means that across almost 95% of India, our customers and small businesses don't have just a website in front of them, they have a face in front of them. And I think, in my view, for this sector, I think that that is one of the keys. I don't see it personally over the next few months or years moving into pure digital yet. And I think this is not just about access to technology, but some of the other points that you made. I think it is about access to information, access to support. When someone is in front of you having a cup of chai and helping you with onboarding, data migration, support issues, etc. I think that that is a very, very big unlocking factor. I did want to make a point about the digital literacy though, because I have just a view about it. What I find fascinating actually is not, I think it is slightly easier to think about the problem as an education problem of giving somebody a software product or giving somebody technology and trying to solve it through education. But what I find fascinating, and the problem I think I've fallen a little bit in love with, is how do you think about creating technology without the prerequisite of digital literacy?
Something which is more intuitive, right?
Yeah, intuitive is one way to put it. So one of the first Tally customers that I ever met while I was in college actually, he had bought a computer just to use Tally. And he actually had no idea how to operate the computer, which I found super interesting. So the only thing the partner had taught him was how to switch on the computer, how to open Tally, and then he'd run his business. And by the end of the day, save, exit Tally, switch off the computer. Literally did not use the computer for anything else. And I don't know if the word intuitive would capture that feeling. And I think that for technologists is just a very, very difficult but very interesting problem to solve.
Right, right. That's an interesting point. Dinesh, the other thing that I wanted to understand, how can e-commerce platforms really help MSMEs in terms of expanding support to local, regional brands? How do you make it a level playing field?
Yeah, I think that's the key challenge that's going to be there in the next, let's say, decade or so. How do we make sure that while organization of commerce is happening, it's not getting concentrated into just a few pockets.
It doesn't become an oligopoly of sorts.
So I think there are a few things which MSMEs do really well, right? One is they have a lot of appetite to innovate and bring in new sort of products, technologies. So for example, in e-commerce, what we see is whenever there is a new trend that's catching on, typically the MSMEs, the fashion MSMEs, for instance, are the ones which are first to get on that trend quickly and be able to produce, maybe not in very large quantities, but in smaller quantities. So they bring a lot of variety or assortment.
Give us an example of it.
Example could be, let's say there is some new trend, some actress has worn something that is trending, the whole, let's say, fast fashion thing that has happened, be it in China, and the same is kind of being replicated across in India, they have the advantage of speed. So they can move quickly, change their systems and processes, which, let's say, a large-scale organization might not be able to do. So the agility that they bring is quite important. The ability to operate with lower overheads is the second important thing that they're able to kind of deliver on. So I think the next sort of challenge in online will be to kind of build on these strengths and be able to actually use that to compete with, let's say, some of the larger players and brands, etc.
Got it. Ms. Sood, from a regulatory perspective, compliance perspective, what more needs to be done in terms of the compliance requirements or, the policies currently?
Well, that's a very good question, but not an easy one to answer because...
Are there so many issues that it's not easy to answer?
Actually, there are so many that I can't even begin to answer it because, you see, from the beginning of your operations till the end, there are so many compliances that, the MSME is fed up. I told you why the next generation doesn't want. The reason is that children grow up and see their mothers and fathers who are managing their business. If you are a salaried person, whether you are in private or you are in government, once you come home, you are home. But when you are running an enterprise and a manufacturing one at that, you are never, offline or you are never off duty. You are 24/7, you are always there. There is a, saying in our circle, the customer says, how are you, pulta hai na wo? So he'll say, Mr. Sood, acha. I'll say, I'm in hospital. So he'll say, please deliver my goods before dying. So, the life is so tough. And actually, we have written from our association to the Prime Minister of India. I don't know if it ever got to him. They had started a scheme of lateral infusion from the industry. So I said, let's have it other way around. Why don't you send your secretaries and, additional secretaries, deputy secretaries to the MSMEs? Let them spend a day or two with us. Let them see how the factories run. And we offered them that our Badali Industrial Estate, which incidentally is India's cleanest industrial estate. We were awarded by the Ministry of MSME as India's cleanest industrial estate. I said, we offer you that let us make our industrial estate as your laboratory. You put your scheme to test, send your people here, and let them face the music. Because you see, when the policy makers you have so many kinds of reports coming. They sit in their air-conditioned room and come out with a report. So, they are not, connected with the reality. So, what I want to say is that there is an immense possibility. It is very heartening to see that our Prime Minister say that he is, governments used to make laws, he is now undoing the created laws. But such a lot of things have to be done that it is really, one finds himself or herself in a hopeless situation. You take it any aspect, whether it is labor laws, other laws, there are so many compliances that at the end of the day, you say, कि भाई मेरा काम करवा दो, जो आपकी दक्षिणा है वो हम दे देंगे, आप हमारा काम कर दीजिए. That is the slogan. तो वो चीज जब तक हम नहीं उसको एड्रेस करेंगे, we have to, start from scratch. We have to, जैसे control alt del होता है कंप्यूटर में, ये जो laws concerning the MSMEs, we have to do that and start afresh.
Controlled. Okay. Mr. Agarwal, one other game changer that many people are talking about is the ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce. Do you think that could be a game changer for small sellers in India, and how?
I would certainly hope that it becomes as useful as UPI is. But before that, I think OCEN has a lot more in pipeline because it's a purely digital information-only platform. On the ONDC, the complexity goes further because there are delivery of the goods and things like those involved. I think the first adoption of the ONDC would happen on the purely digital nature of transactions, whether it is ticketing or whether it is hotel booking or whether it is cab booking or food delivery, which has been sorted. But once it catches on, I think it can be very powerful because obviously a public digital infrastructure which reduces the cost for everybody. In general, on a theory, it looks all good. UPI has proven this, that it can be done on a scale,
population scale,
and at a population, at every village and every sabji wala and every online store or every large superstore. So I think ONDC and OCEN, I would rather believe that the account aggregator and OCEN, where there is a digital transfer, interchange of data, digital interchange of document, that is far more easier and can have a bigger impact, and then followed by ONDC. ONDC again for digital goods, then physical goods, then B2B, then many other things.
Got it. Nupur, another trend that we saw at least during the pandemic was a lot of MSME focused SaaS startups, and there were very fancy catchwords like Dukaan Tech and Kirana Tech, which actually attracted a huge amount of capital. But they seem to have lost steam. It's not that hot anymore. So why do you think that is, and what software do MSMEs need really at the end of the day?
So that's a slightly broad question, but let me try to answer it in this way. I think when it comes to the MSME sector, and everyone in this room knows the sheer diversity that is there in the sector, I think the approach to creating technology is really about creating the right technology for the MSME, meaning that they should not require to change the way they run their business in order to adopt your technology. It should be the other way around. And I think a lot of companies and a lot of startups did miss that despite the initial run that we perceived. Which meant that there were so many products in the market which were demoable but were not really usable. So once you were in front of a business owner, the product was fantastic, but once you exit the door and the owner starts running the business and they start using the product, that's when issues started surfacing. And again, it goes back to the access, potentially lack of support, that starts creeping in. And the second something becomes more of a friction rather than a lubrication to your business, you will reject it. So I think it was more, I see it more as the approach you use in order to design and develop technology.
Got it. Got it. We are running out of time, so I'm just going to ask each of you. We're calling the session MSMEs and the decade. So one big prediction or trend that you foresee this decade or decade. I think I'll start with Mr. Sood.
Well, I see a great future there, and I see that the entire spectrum of MSMEs will go a sea change, both in their working and in their outlook in another decade or so. And there is a need to simplify things and make security higher, as I've already said. And well, the next decade is for technology, and MSME has everything to gain from it.
Dinesh?
So I think in our view, maybe about 2 million of the 64 million MSMEs today work online. Our expectation is that number starts reaching almost 70–80% of the entire base of MSMEs, and the base itself should grow. And a lot will go into that. It will mean simpler technologies for people to use. It will mean credit which should be available on tap versus kind of really making an effort to do that. So that's our expectation and hope.
Okay. Nupur?
I would actually make 2 points. One is off of the point Amit made in the previous panel, that today, even if you have an SME that is digitized in various aspects of their business, the business data is still isolated. They're still islands. And I think if we can see how connectivity for business data as opposed to individuals can be transformed, I think the way businesses transact with each other can completely change. And I think the second thing I would say is actually for software providers. I think we'll see a huge push and a huge rush, at least I'm hopeful for it, of the war cry of made in India and made for the world.
Mr. Agarwal.
See, I see technology eliminating many roadblocks. You asked about the level playing field. The earlier non-digital media, whether it is newspaper or whether it is television, or they always favored big people. MSMEs could not really afford those media. Because of the digital media, platforms like Meesho, platforms like IndiaMart, platforms like Google, MSMEs can now side by side work and create a very level playing advertising and marketing field. Similarly, on the red tapeism, whatever red tape is, half of the red tape is, or even more than half, is because of the human interface, not because of the laws. People don't have too much problem of the law. The interpretation of the law is far more problematic. And we have seen how income tax digitization has eased it out to a great extent.
Correct.
Now, similarly, GST has eased it out to a great extent because you no longer have to go to a tax office every year or every month or every quarter and file there and take an acknowledgement from there. You can file digitally, digital acknowledgement comes, digital sunwai is there. So I think the more digital adoption happens at the government level,
lesser red tape
the red tape will go down dramatically, and the government is very taking huge advantage of this whole Aadhaar and GST and all that data. Most of your data, the connectivity issues are already getting solved. If you go to an income tax officer or a tax officer, he already has more data about your business than you yourself have. So all the data is now available. Your income tax return is all pre-filled. GST return is also going to be pre-filled quite a bit with the e-invoicing and all that. So now with the technology, I think MSMEs would have a lot of level playing field, would have less red tapeism to face, and would have better, cheaper software available, because as Sam Altman and Elon Musk and everybody is predicting that with this whole AI and with this whole thing, the cost of software is going to go down dramatically. At least the usage-based, rent-based software is going to go down dramatically. So I am very hopeful that next whole decade or this whole century is going to be a Decathlon or Techa century.
Okay. On that positive note, thank you all very much for joining us on the panel. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra, and all the panelists for that very insightful discussion. The interplay of digital technology and policy reforms has definitely paved an exciting way ahead for Indian MSMEs. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of our MSME Summit. I would like to thank all the panelists and speakers for being part of the summit. And last but not the least, it was a great pleasure to have you all as wonderful audience without whom this summit would not have been success. Thank you all for being part of Moneycontrol Policy Next Go, presented by SPAN, Associate Partner, IBM and Intel, even Partner, Strata and Solutions Partner, Tally. Thank you all for being such a wonderful audience. Please join us for cocktails and dinner. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Request you to please join us for cocktails and